Subscribe to this channel right now and do not scroll past this video, because what Kim Clijsters just said about Eala is not a compliment. It is a technical verdict from one of the most decorated champions in the history of professional tennis, delivered with the precise, forensic language of someone who has spent her entire life studying the mechanics of how this sport is won and lost at the highest level. 4 Grand Slam titles. Former world number 1. A player whose own game was built entirely around the exact qualities she is now identifying in Eala's arsenal. When Kim Clijster speaks about tennis technique, you do not debate it. You listen. And what she said about Eala on her Love All podcast this week should have every opponent in the Indian Wells draw watching her practice footage with considerably more anxiety than they walked in with. Let us go through every word of it right now. Clijster started with the baseline assessment and delivered it without hesitation. She said there are a lot of things Eala does really well and that those things make her opponents feel very uncomfortable. That sentence alone, from a 4-time Grand Slam champion who competed against Serena Williams, Justine Henin, and the best players of an entire era, is already something worth stopping on. Making opponents feel uncomfortable is not the same as beating them with power or outlasting them with fitness. It is a specific technical quality that means the opponent is being forced to operate outside their comfort zone on every single point, which compounds across a match in ways that statistics alone cannot capture. And then Clijsters went specific. She started with the left hand. Being a left-hander, Clijsters explained, is something Eala cannot control and also something that creates problems for opponents before the match even begins. The angles open up differently from a left-handed baseline. The ball travels to different parts of the court. The patterns that right-handed opponents have drilled against right-handed opponents for their entire careers do not translate cleanly when the person on the other side of the net is hitting from the opposite angle. Every left-hander in tennis history has benefited from this asymmetry. But Clijsters was pointing at something more specific than just the left-hand advantage. She was pointing at what Eala does with it. The backhand, Clijsters said directly, is better than the forehand. Her forehand is really good. But the backhand is a little bit more of an aggressive shot. That sentence is the one that every WTA scout and every opponent's coaching staff should be highlighting, because what Clijsters is describing is a player whose secondary shot, the one that most players develop as a steadying mechanism rather than a weapon, has been developed into the primary offensive instrument of her entire game. The combination, Clijsters explained in detail, works like this. Eala hits her aggressive backhand baseline shot with heavy spin that forces the opponent back behind the baseline. From that position, the opponent tries to respond. And when they do, Eala uses her forehand to create the angle that opens the court, sending the ball to the opponent's backhand. That sequence, executed at a pace and with the consistency that Clijsters is describing, is extraordinarily difficult to neutralize because it requires the opponent to defend from behind the baseline, move laterally, and then recover court position, all in the same point, repeatedly. Most players cannot sustain that for 3 sets. And Clijsters said something that encapsulates exactly why. A lot of players have a really hard time dealing with it. And then Clijsters went somewhere that nobody expected. She reached into her own memory of the players who made her feel what Eala is now making opponents feel, and she landed on a name. Dominika Cibulková. The former world number 4 from Slovakia. A player famous for her explosive footwork, her ability to manufacture offensive positions from defensive situations, and the relentless competitive intensity that made her one of the most dangerous opponents on any surface for a decade. Clijsters called it a pitbull mentality. She said Eala and Cibulková share it. The ability to absorb pressure from a defensive position and then transition instantaneously into aggression. From back foot to front foot. From defense to attack. Without a recovery phase in between. That specific quality, Clijsters said, is a very tough combination to handle on the other side of the net. And she said Eala has it in full. She added the footwork. She praised the stamina. She noted the mental growth she can already see in a player who is still just 20 years old. She referenced the match against Iga Swiatek at Miami last year, calling it a really good match, as the evidence of someone who has already demonstrated the mental ability to compete with the very best players in the world when the pressure is highest. And she made the point that every opponent at Indian Wells now needs to take seriously. A lot of players know Eala's strengths and weaknesses, and she is going to have to make her strengths even stronger and work on the weaker areas. Because the tour has done its homework. And that makes the next phase of development the most important of her career. But Clijsters did not finish there. She saved her highest praise for the very end, and when it came, it stopped every person who heard it in their tracks. She compared Eala to Michael Jordan. Not in terms of tennis achievement or Grand Slam titles. In terms of what it means to be who she is in her home country. She said Eala has to deal with this life of being like Michael Jordan in the Philippines. People think it is just online and in the news, but it is not easy to deal with changes like that so quickly. Four-time Grand Slam champion. Former world number 1. And she looked at a 20-year-old from Quezon City and compared her cultural significance to the greatest basketball player who ever lived. That is not hyperbole. That is a precise description of what Eala represents to 110 million people, and Clijsters has the stature and the credibility to make that comparison without anyone questioning it. Djokovic, meanwhile, has already been on record about the scheduling and court assignment situation, telling tournament organizers directly and publicly that when Eala comes to a tournament, the draw organizers need to put her on a bigger court so more people can actually watch her live. His exact statement at the Australian Open press conference, that the Philippines is now a big deal and that Eala is the biggest tennis player that country has ever produced, came after watching what her presence generated on Court 6, where hundreds of fans were locked outside and the overflow crowded adjacent courts just to get a sightline. Djokovic had no obligation to address that situation. He chose to. And he chose to do it by putting his name and his reputation directly behind hers. Jessica Pegula, speaking from personal experience about what she walked into when she faced Eala at the Miami Open, used one word above all others: insane. She said she was from Miami, she knew those crowds, and she had never seen anything like it. She said you could hear the roar from the hotel, from outside the venue. The atmosphere had escaped the walls of the stadium and was traveling across the surrounding grounds. She said week after week, wherever Eala plays, the support comes and it grows. Australia overcrowded. Dubai packed beyond any previous early round precedent. Indian Wells practice courts running out of capacity before the main draw begins. Pegula did not say any of this as a complaint. She said it the way an experienced professional recognizes something historic while she is standing in the middle of it. Former Roger Federer coach Paul Annacone added one more layer when he said Eala has a smile that lights up a room and that what stands out in her game is the combination of hand-eye coordination and the ability to take the ball early and redirect. He remembered watching her beat Swiatek in Miami and said it was done with a lot of grace and humility that he found genuinely impressive. He noted her 10-6 record in 2026, including wins over Donna Vekic and Jasmine Paolini, and said the fan passion that follows her is always fun to see, especially when it comes from a smaller country that has never had a player reach this level before. Eala enters Indian Wells ranked 32nd in the world with the pitbull mentality of Cibulkova, the backhand that Kim Clijsters just declared the most dangerous in women's tennis, the cultural weight of Michael Jordan on her shoulders, and the quiet certainty of a 20-year-old who has already beaten Swiatek, Keys, Ostapenko, and Paolini and knows exactly what she is capable of when the ball is in play and the crowd is roaring. Drop everything in the comments right now and tell us what you think. Is Kim Clijsters right that the backhand is already the most dangerous weapon in women's tennis? When a four-time Grand Slam champion compares you to Michael Jordan before you have won a major title, does that raise the expectations to a level that helps or hurts? And does the pitbull comparison to Cibulkova tell you everything you need to know about how Eala is going to approach her Indian Wells campaign? Smash that like button if you believe this is the year the titles start matching the atmosphere. Subscribe to this channel right now because Indian Wells is live and we are covering every point every day. Share this with every tennis fan you know. Kim Clijsters just put the entire WTA on notice. Let us go.